Hey kids, right behind me is some new growth oak. That means that it's young and it's flexible. And in this stage, we can do a lot of stuff with it. We can make cordage, we can make traps, and today we're gonna make an atlatl. So we're gonna turn one of these into an arrow and we're gonna carve an atlatl handle. So come along. When you're doing things around clusters of branches like this, you wanna make sure that you look down at the base before you even get close to it and make sure that there's not any snakes or little critters hiding underneath it. They might be mad because it might be their home. Now, we want a almost straight stick, kind of like this one. And a pretty good thickness. That means about the size of your index finger or your ring finger. So we're just simply going to chop it off. Now good green ones, you can just snap them off. Now we're going to chop off the end to get rid of that curve. Like so. And we're going to trim off all of the branches. Now these are easy to find if you have what's known as a green stump. A green stump means a stump that you haven't removed that was part of a living tree. So if your parents chopped down a living tree and left the stump behind, more than likely, if the weather's right and there's enough moisture, more branches will grow off that stump as the tree tries to repair itself. So now we have our almost straight arrow. Now we're going to straighten it. For this, we're going to need to make a fire. Now, preparing our fire, we want to get some nice dry tinder, and we know it's dry when we bend it, and you can hear it snap. So we're going to break that up into small little pieces. We don't need a big fire. Here, I have some dried leaves and some cedar bark. And notice the area that I'm creating my fire in has already been cleared of all branches and grass, dried grass, to where I know that there's not anything that's going to spread this fire around. So when I'm getting a fire started, what I like to do is I like to take a stick that has a Y in it, and I put that in the ground. And I take a longer stick and I put that right over the top of the Y with my little tinder bundle underneath. Then I just simply stack sticks right along the side of it, building up a little pile at the bottom, and then using that pile to hold the rest of the sticks that I want to put on top. Remember, we're using only dried sticks here. So now we're going to light our tinder bundle, and we've got many ways to do it, but this time I brought a lighter with me. Once we got our fire going, we can add more sticks to it. Remember to keep alternating them back and forth so you don't pile them up all in one spot. Now to straighten our arrow, we can see where the bend is, so we're going to add heat right here. Now don't worry, it's green wood, so it's not going to burn. What we're doing is we're exciting the fluids inside of it and making the material bendable. Keep in mind where your curves are and give it a little stretch. And hold it there in that position. Now this might get hot, of course, because you just had it over the fire. But as it cools, it'll lock itself into that position. Looking down your arrow can give you an idea of which direction it's bending, so you can see where you need to add heat. And the last thing you want to do when you're surviving is rush. Take your time. Remember, there's no race but the human race. blowing on your fire is how you can actually make your fire a little bigger. If you don't see flames, that means there's coals. You're still getting heat because you can feel heat. So if you want to get a flame in order to produce more heat, you simply blow on it, adding more oxygen. Here I'm using another piece of wood with a Y in order to help bend so I don't burn my hands on it. Remember, like I said, you did just heat it up, so it's probably hot. Now that we've got a mostly straight arrow, what we're going to do is we're going to peel all the bark off of it because it's still green and smooth it out. Now that we have our fire going again, we're going to harden our arrow. And we can do any final straightening that we want to finish off. We still have a little bit of a bend here, so we're going to cook that one spot. And then again, the same technique as before. We're just bending it to where it goes straight. And letting the fire set the angle in. Again, take your time. Now we can harden the whole arrow by just slowly moving it across the fire from one side to the other. Starting at one end and working our way back to the other. Now comes some important parts. The places of our arrow that take the most stress are going to be the back side of the arrow and the front side of the arrow that impacts something. So we want to get those nice and dry and harden them. So we're going to just stick this in the fire and slowly turn it. Remember, it's green wood, so it takes a long time for it to burn. When you start to see it turn brown, then you're pretty much done. See how that's a different color than the rest of the wood? So we're good there. Now we just need to do this side. So now that I've found the right piece of wood, a piece that I feel has got a great curve to it, it's got a good handle, and a good spot where I can carve out for what we're going to use to hold our arrow, and it has good mass at the back and light in the front, plus it fits my hand, all we have to do is carve it down. So I'm going to get rid of this Y intersection, and then flatten it out, remove the bark, and carve it down. A really good technique for trimming off bark is to place a knife into something like a stump or a log and pull with your sharp side from that way, pull your piece of wood across the blade using the stump to hold your knife in place. This is also a good way to take down good portions of material that you don't want, and also keep the blade cutting surface away from you so you don't accidentally cut yourself. When you're in a survival situation, a small cut can mean the difference between life and death, especially if you don't have any advanced medical treatment to get to, or if you're low on medical supplies. Now, we want to make a nice flat arch into this. So what we want to do is we want to cut out a small piece of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick this here, right there, and we're going to hammer that down with another piece of wood in order to make a divot inside of it. So we're going to score it so we know exactly where we want our mark to be. And then we're going to hammer down on that. Remember again, take your time. You're not in a rush. See how we're starting to form a little notch? So we got to go a lot deeper. So now that we got our notch, we're going to put our stopping plate. Remember the bindings that we wanted to save? Now we're going to use those. Ugh. Everything can eventually have a purpose. So these green pieces of bark, we're going to strip them down as thin as we possibly can, but keeping as long a pieces as we can. Just like that. What we want to do is we want to try and have as many long pieces as possible so we can twist up a rope from them. There we go. Now that we've got that done, we can start using our pants. We can put the rope right against our pants and just roll it away from us. Now that we have our rolled lashing, we can secure our knocking stick, our knocking stone. So this little stone is going to give us just a little bit more surface area above the top to catch our arrow. We're simply going to secure it by tying it on at the top of our atlatl. Oh, mosquito bit my ear. because we're using green lashings, when they dry, they will tighten up. So it'll make this even tighter than what it is when we originally put it on. And there we go. We did everything right. This should go straight. Not bad. And there we have a semi-traditional survival atlatl that we made in about 20 minutes. Now, of course, you can add feathers to the back and an arrowhead to the front, and then you'll have a really, really good effective tool for some survival. And if not, you got a good club to beat the animal with. Stay safe. Don't die.